relax that go through the screen in different colors, and by the time it would get to the letter X at the end, I would be all calmed down. I would have forgotten all about my workload for the morning, and I could actually eat and enjoy my food. So it became handy then to use the logic of what I was doing, something practical right there. I have a few more things to explain to you about the psychology, I guess, or the logic of what meditation is, and then I'm going to walk you through a meditative exercise, explain exactly how to do it, and lead you through it so you can start getting on your own road to practicing these ideas. But I want to finish first for a little bit more here, explaining more about the concept of what meditation is, because it can be done improperly, and you can actually kind of harm yourself if you're not careful. Well, so far we've talked about the ability we need to observe things very clearly, right? Okay. Well, by observing things clearly, what we're doing is we're learning to concentrate on it and see it exactly for what it is. We need to develop a thoroughness of observation. This is very difficult and it takes a lot of work. But if you plan to have any kind of success at all with your meditation, you have to spend quite a bit of time at this level and invest a little in it, or things are just not going to develop. You have to develop the ability to clearly observe an object thoroughly and see it exactly for what it really is. Clear, absolute knowing and logic about what you are actually looking at. If it's a pack of cigarettes, or if it's a problem in life, or if it's a car, a person, whatever it is, we need to develop the ability to clearly see things exactly as they are. This requires that we observe that object without any kind of prejudice or emotion involved. Remember the process we talked about of how we gather information with our senses, with our sight, touch, taste, smell, and hearing, and so forth? Well, that's what we're used to doing. We're used to always seeing things, and we perceive what they are and so forth with our senses, and after we've seen something once or twice, we gather information about it, and then we have a known kind of library on it. We have an inventory of thoughts about something, like smoking. People who are serious smokers, they could probably write down a whole page of ideas why it's good to smoke. All these pleasure things they get from it, and they develop more and more of them as they go along. They have to learn to turn that off, to shut that down. That's what we're going to do in meditation. So that if for somebody who does smoke, they could start use this as a practice, take that practice of cigarettes, and begin to meditate and clearly see cigarettes for exactly what they are. Okay? Because if we allow all of our preconceived notions about something, our attached attitudes and emotions to an object, we're always going to fail in the meditative practice. We will never be able to develop our meditation on a thing if we do that. So our first practice then really is just to learn how to concentrate and clearly see something thoroughly. The pure observation of an object is merely the registration of that object, to see exactly where it starts and stops and exactly what it is. It's not easy, it's very difficult, but it's very important that you put the effort out to try it, to clearly see something and concentrate on it well, because once you do, you'll reach a small level of success. And once you reach that small level of success, you'll notice that you actually have some power, that you really do have a spirit, and that you start to get yourself somewhat in balance, where not your entire life is not actually controlled by your material self, and there's kind of a thrill involved there. And there's this feeling of personal power, the knowing that you can actually have some control over the physical world around you. It's obviously difficult because we're not used to clearly observing things. We rely all the time on our inventory of, preconceived notions and ideas about things, all of our judgments. It's really very rare when you start out meditating that you can actually concentrate on anything very long or see it very clearly. But that's what we're after. We have a habit, especially in our society, through advertising and everything else, we are taught, we are conditioned continually in TV and books and magazines and motion pictures and so forth to always have attitudes about things, because that's how they sell us products. And that's how they control us, even if it's an election. We just elected Bill Clinton president, and a lot of the election, as you can see, is through all the negative campaigning, is creating votes through fear and negativity and so forth. Well, that's a tried and true method. They know if you can rile people up and say things that cause them to attach anger and hostility to another candidate, that's how they'll see that individual. And when they go to the polls, they certainly won't vote for them because they've attached some of their bad feelings, their negative feelings to that person, and it's been triggered by this other candidate. So more and more people are catching on to that, though, and I see it's very good that a lot of people are standing up to the negative campaigning, and it didn't go well at all for Bush to do that this time. The next thing I want to talk about is what Billy calls the acquirement. And the acquirement, frankly, it's just to be able to acquire a pure observation of something. It's a word that he uses. See, if the material consciousness, which has control over the pure observation, is not strictly controlled by pure and clear attention, then when it passes the observation on to the spirit, it'll receive a distorted material view of the object, and your meditation has failed. You see, we're going to use our senses to originally perceive the object. Okay, let's say that pack of cigarettes again. So we're going to use our eyes, and maybe if there's a cigarette they're smoking, we'd also use our nose. But we're going to use our eyes to observe it. We might even pick the package up and touch it and feel it a little bit. We might take a cigarette out and put it to our lips and taste the tobacco or whatever. So we can use our senses now to actually discover everything about this cigarette package. If we don't make any effort to clearly observe it, what are we going to do? We already have preconceived feelings all about it, all the things that we like about smoking. And when we attempt then to pass on our observation through the subconscious over into the subconscious of the spirit about all of our logic and knowledge we have about this cigarette package, what's going to happen? We're going to send it all of our negative information about it, all these preconceived notions of how wonderful smoking is, and how great it is, and how pleasurable, and how we like it. Well, we don't gain anything, do we? So no meditative immersion is possible there. We gained nothing. Matter of fact, we kind of damaged ourselves because now we're beginning to train our spiritual self that it's good to smoke. So we really gained no ground there at all. So to acquire a pure observation is the task of sorting out the extraneous thoughts and unwanted thoughts and feelings so we do not pass out the extraneous thoughts and unwanted thoughts and feelings so we do not pass them over to the spirit as our observation. The goal is to observe an object thoroughly and leave a state of mind that Billy calls the remaining at the body in contemplation of the body. This means that nothing else is in existence in your entire thought realm, no ego or anything, no mixing of thoughts, except what we're supposed to be observing. When we get to the point where we want to pass on subconsciously our observations of this package of cigarettes, we want to pass over their strictly clear and keen observation of it. And again, our approach here would be much like someone who had never seen the package of cigarettes before. So what we would do is we would view that cigarette package, and we would look at it like it's a totally unknown object. And we would pick it up and look at it, feel the material, notice the cardboard or paper or however it's wrapped. And very small and minutely we would look at each detail of the package. And as a practice you might spend 10 minutes observing everything about it, except that you just observe it. You don't make any judgments about it. You don't decide on if you like the plastic or the color is this, that, and the other. You just observe it, and you will see that things will come to you. The package will begin to almost speak out. And then you start forming a new thought about it that you pass on to the spirit. The next thing that Billy talks about is called the value. The value is the product of a thought process. That's what's handed over to the spirit, and he calls it as an instrument. And this thought process that we hand over to the spirit produces a strength, and it's based on newly gained knowledge and produces a corresponding effect in the spirit. Consequently, the new thought represents the value or a new programming. This serves as a guide for the spirit, so as the spiritual self begins to concentrate on this new thought and matures, it finds a new value within itself. So we don't want to feed the spirit a bunch of trash and rubbish, do we? You know, the purpose here is to get ourselves in balance, so we don't want to send it all the same junk that's in our material self to begin with. True wisdom only recognizes such matters which are carefully tested by attention and never gets confused, because wisdom only acknowledges absolute logic. That's what truth is. The object to be observed requires extremely careful preparation and cleansing. This object, our package of cigarettes, will begin to speak for itself. And don't interrupt that with your own ideas or judgments. Because as you stare and concentrate on this package of cigarettes, and at this point we're going to do nothing. We're not going to move, use our hands or anything. We're just going to look at it. And we're going to go totally blank as far as any material knowledge we have about that product whatsoever. The idea is that as we strictly observe it with our eyes and concentrate totally on the package of cigarettes, the package of cigarettes will begin to reveal itself. And you'll find that suddenly you'll have a knowing and a knowledge totally about every detail of that package, but it'll be much different than your normal material viewpoints on that package. You probably won't even see it as something to smoke. You'll have no connection to your lungs or to your mind or to pleasure or to eating or to your girlfriend or anything. You will develop a very clear, precise, clear observation of that package of cigarettes and see it just exactly as what it is, just simply a material object. And then after it is presented itself, it will speak up about itself through clear observation. That information is passed on to the spirit, and the spirit then has real, factual, absolute logic about a package of cigarettes, which is unattached with any of your material ideas and judgments about that. Every time you clearly observe something, now we're picking on a package of cigarettes, it could be more fascinating to observe an animal. Say you're a cat, fish, or a dog you may have, or even a person. Go to a park and study a person. Every time you do that, it's fascinating. I've done that many times. I'll go sit in a park and watch people. I get such a kick out of looking at people because when I observe them and just clearly observe them from strictly an observation viewpoint without interjecting any outside influences of my own, no value judgments, no emotions about it. I just look at them as human beings, as spirit objects, and see you get all these new insights. Every person is projecting these beautiful new ideas about themselves. You see the way they walk, the way they talk, the way they maybe play in the grass, the way they smile, the way they comb their hair and the clothes they wear. But you just observe these things without making any judgment about it. And you get these really neat insights into life. And suddenly you feel a real closeness and connection to that person, but you don't know them materially, but you're getting to know them spiritually. You start to make a connection subconsciously. There's a great connection. It's loving. It's the basis for what universal love is. And you have an understanding now with a person. You know this person spiritually, and you've never met them. And you have formed no material ideas or connection to them. You can then send those feelings on into your spirit because your spirit's open for business all the time. And you will feel yourself develop in power personally. Okay? In his book, Billy has an example. I'm using a cigarette package, and he uses a rose. He talks about how to take something as common as a rose and observe that. And notice right away that your first impression is what's called a sight impression. You already have preconceived ideas about a rose and what it is, right? And you'll notice right away that this current knowledge, this inventory of facts about a rose, jump to the forefront of your thoughts. Well, dash them out. Just push them out of the way and see it for exactly for what it is. Go through the steps of observation. First, you only see a color. And after you observe the color, as you continue observing it, you'll notice that there is form to it. The rose will speak out to you. The rose will show its shape. The rose will show its petals. It will show each little intricate part of itself will suddenly become aware to you because you're observing it clearly and keenly. There will be an entire succession of observations, a very small detail that in very rapid succession will form a keen observation from all sides of this rose. And you develop a practice or an exercise of seeing things clearly. This exercise and this practice of that will become part of you. Once it becomes part of you, you've developed a new way of seeing things. You've developed a way of turning off the normal material things, the material ways that we normally check things out, And now we're developing a way that through a meditative exercise, a simple practice of mind control, to be able to observe something spiritually and see it with your spirit clearly, and let your spirit feel all that new information. And it's amazing how strong it gets. It's amazing how your spirit reacts to the beauty